Fondé par les câbleaux distributeurs pour les Canadiens.
Hi, welcome to Beyond Politics. I'm Catherine Clark. Ed Holder was one of 6 kids who grew up in a working-class East Coast family that moved to Toronto just before he was born. He credits his strongly opinionated Cape Breton mother for his work ethic and his commitment to community service. He first ran for the Progressive Conservatives in 1993 in the election that nearly saw that party decimated, and he went on to build a very successful business career before he decided to throw his hat in the ring again in 2008. Ed Holder joins me now to talk all about his life beyond politics. Ed Holder, welcome to Beyond Politics. It's really great to have you here.
Thanks, Catherine. My pleasure.
So, you grew up actually, you were born on the East Coast, is that correct?
Well, actually, not exactly correct, although I give all the credit to my East Coast roots.
Right.
My mom was born in Glace-Bay, Cape Breton.
Okay.
My dad was born in Holderville in New Brunswick.
Right.
And when I was a little lad, they moved to Upper Canada just before I was born.
Okay.
So I was thought of wildly in the East Coast, but I was conceived in Upper Canada.
Now, Holderville, is that named after the family? Or
Absolutely.
It is,
Absolutely.
Oh, my goodness. Well, what an impact your family must have had then.
Well, if you've ever been to Holderville, which is just outside, well, it's easy to miss, actually, but it's a cute little hamlet, and it's just outside St. John.
Okay.
Had the privilege to spend a few days there to see my family.
Yeah.
Because my dad's 2 sisters are still alive, 93 and 90, so it was great to spend some time with my family and see some cousins and see the Holderville house and the place where my dad grew up, and it was like coming home, and it was great.
Why you call it Upper Canada? Why do you call it Upper Canada?
Well, probably for the same reason that my mom says it's Cape Breton. It's not Nova Scotia. Just very fierce in their opinions. That's just the way they were.
Right.
And she said, look, it wasn't our fault that they annexed Cape Breton. We didn't build the causeway, so she's pretty fierce about those views, and so I kind of just get it naturally.
Now, why Upper Canada? Why did they decide to make the move?
My mom and dad met during the war, the Second World War, and Dad joined the New Brunswick Rangers in the Army with his brother. Dad didn't finish grade 8. In fact, when I spoke to my family about why most of the family did, there just wasn't buses to take them to high school from their grade 8, so most of them didn't get past that. Dad went logging. It was the Depression, so he didn't have skills per se. Went into the Army for adventure with his brother. His brother was killed in Belgium, so he never talked much about the war, but he was a truck driver when he got out, and he spent the full 6 years there. And just wanted a better chance for his family, and we had a bunch of kids in my family. I had a lot of siblings, so he was just looking for a better life, and so they moved to Toronto. They'd followed my mom's mom to Toronto with a couple of my mom's sisters, so we just the clan just moved all together, and we ended up in Toronto.
How many of you were there?
Well, from my side, I was the 5th of 6 kids. Okay. So I was surrounded by a strong, opinionated mom, 4 very opinionated sisters. I never had a chance, actually, and so as it was, it was a great family spirit. It's what we had, and that's what made us stronger.
You talked a bit about your dad. What was your mom like, other than being very opinionated?
Oh my God, she was. Mom said I never worked out. She never worked outside the home, but she sure worked hard as heck inside. But she was the consummate volunteer. She was the one that gave me my passion for politics, my passion for volunteering, my passion to play guitar and do some songs and things, to write some. Not very well, but on the other hand, I used to say I've got my dad's physique and my mom's Cape Breton opinions. That's about it.
Is that a good combination?
Well, you know what? If you think this physique is great, then I'll say sure. And as for the opinions, what I used to say to Mom about Cape Bretoners is that what I loved about my mom was that no matter how much she knew about a subject, she had an opinion on it. Oh, she'd get cranky with me when I'd say that.
She would. Yeah. You're lucky if there wasn't a pot around.
Well, there might have been by times, but I was pretty nimble back then, so that turned out okay.
So tell me about the growing up in Toronto. What were you like as a kid?
Well, again...
Harassed, I think.
Well, probably. I mean, my brother, being 6 kids, I had a brother, and so I was the youngest boy and 5th out of 6.
Yeah.
But actually, I was fairly quiet and shy. And so through that process of growing up, in fact, I was born too much premature. So Mom said I was always in a hurry. So whenever there was that last little scrap of food, they'd always say, "That's Eddie's. He gets that." my sisters get cranky because I get that second piece of dessert and all,
Sure.
much to my chagrin these days. But
so were you a little kid too?
oh, I was tiny.
You were tiny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, Mom was kind of protective about me, which
Sure.
so we grew real close.
Yeah. Huh. Now, was there an expectation because your dad had never gone beyond grade 8? And did your mom have any kind of an education?
Yeah, Mom finished high school and actually was accepted at St. X.
Was she really?
Oh yeah, and she went to school.
Couldn't go, or?
Oh, she went to school for about, as she tells the story, about 2.5 weeks. Got so homesick she had to come home.
Oh, really?
So she never finished. She never went back, and as a result, she came home and stayed home with the family. And it was kind of interesting when Mom and Dad lived with us toward the end, and they both died in our home because they were sick and they needed. The Mom would never go into a home. That just wouldn't be right.
Right.
That's how she felt. So Mom and Dad came in to move with us, and when Dad passed away first, he lasted about 1.5 years, and I was doing Dad's eulogy, and I said, well, Mom, we know you and Dad were like married forever, but can you tell me, like, how long did you know each other before you met? So she looked and she said, well, 3 weeks, dear. I said, no, Mom, not how long you were engaged. How long did you know each other? She said, 3 weeks, dear. I said, Mom, that's just wrong. And she said, well, that was war, dear. Those were different times. And she said, besides, 60 years together is a pretty good love story. Hard to argue that.
Absolutely.
Hard to argue.
Was there an expectation then that you children would try to achieve more than they had been able to because of the lack of education or the lack of employment circumstances?
Well, I think my folks were more pragmatic than that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every family has probably a different way that they've been raised up. I was the only one of the 6 kids that my younger sister went to university for half a term and then stopped. And for some reason, I was the only one that went through and finished a degree. Not that that's the be all and end all.
No.
The others got married early,
mm-hmm.
and so their lives were kind of set that way.
Yeah.
But Mom kind of took an extra interest in me, maybe because I was that scrawny little kid, and
mm-hmm.
she pushed me pretty hard. And the harder she pushed, the more I did. And so anything that I've got, I certainly look to her for, and her Cape Breton wisdom for what I am today.
So when you were a little kid, did you say to yourself, boy, you know, at our house we talk about politics. At our house we're invested in our community. I'm going to be a politician. Is that what you thought when you were a kid?
No, you know, it's funny. Friends that see you afterwards said, oh, of course, Ed, we knew that you were going to be doing this all the time.
Of course. Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure. I mean, around our table, we were all encouraged to talk. Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. The trouble was, with 6 kids and Mom and Dad, Dad was the quiet one. But in fact, Mom said, you know what, you remind me of your Cape Breton grandfather, Ed. And I said, well, how's that, Mom? And she said, well, because I was feeling really proud when she said that. And she said, well, he had this theory that why use 10 words when 100 could do the same thing. And she said, you're just like that. So we had some pretty fierce dialogues around the table, a lot of opinions. Volunteering when Mom would go to go door to door for cancer or do just do those things like for the church, collect some money for charity. When she did politicking, I was kind of the little one at her knee, and wherever she went, I just kind of followed her. So I really literally learned it at her knee, and that sense of giving back, that sense of service. And again, I attribute that to her.
Where did you go to school?
Several places, actually. Started in Toronto. When I was 10, my parents moved to California because, again, they followed my mom's mom.
Okay.
And they went down to Southern California.
She must have been a powerful person, this grandmother of yours.
Oh, yeah.
Kept following her.
Yeah, and well, fiercely opinionated Cape Bretoner like my mother. And so my mom and dad went down there, for economic betterment, the same reason they came to Upper Canada.
Whereabouts in California?
In Huntington Beach, surfing capital of the world. So my brother.
Surf?
No, my brother did, though. He thought it was more important to surf and wrestle than to go to school, and I joined the chess club, go figure. I was the nerd, and he was the cool guy, and he had the car, and of course he was just a little older than I was, and I ran track, and but it's funny back then. I think about that now, and even in California, I ran for school president, my grade 8 class, lost.
Really?
And, yeah, it was my first traumatic election.
Oh my gosh, that would be awful.
It was not very, very good. And then when we came back to Canada, though, when I was 15, and we did because it's rather interesting. My mom got cancer down there, was real sick, and we had to sell our house to pay the medical bills. We had no insurance. So Dad came back to Canada, and he said, look, if Mom gets sick again, we've got to take care of her. So we had the Canada Health Act here, and that was important. So we came back up. My dad went back to the same job he had left 5 years before.
Wow.
And then I went back to Toronto and finished. I went to 2 high schools there. Became president of my high school in Toronto, Malvern Collegiate, the Beaches. And then from there went to Western. That was kind of my London connection to get me to London. And I wasn't going to go except my principal. I was pretty close to him because I was president of the school. And I said I wanted to go into business. And he said, then you have to go to Western. I said, where's that? He said, London. I said, where's that? And he said, just down the road. So he's the one that encouraged me to go to London. And what a great decision that was.
Yeah. Did you like what you studied?
Well, I studied philosophy. And so the good news about philosophy, when you finish with a philosophy degree, you can go into insurance. So
kind of like art history.
Yeah, there you are.
Or into television.
So that's what I did.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. I remember coming home at Christmas, my very first time to Toronto, my very best friend in the world, and I was studying existentialism and all the things and philosophy in terms of the meaning of life.
Oh my gosh, what a treat you must have been at the
I was brutal. I was brutal. My best friend comes up to me and he wants to give me a hug and say, hey, Ed, how are you doing? I said, what do you mean by that? And I was serious. He said, are you ever messed up? It was not very good. Not very good. So anyway, we got through it, finished my degree, and you know, it's ironic because some years later when I resettled 5 years later, I resettled in London, and at one point got accepted onto the Board of Governors at Western, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I think that is really neat.
Yeah, to kind of go full circle.
Absolutely.
And that was a real honor.
And yes, absolutely, that's what it is. I mean, it's an incredible honor for you to be on the board of the school that you attended. I think that's really neat.
That is really, really impressive.
So you have a long record also of being a very respected businessman in your community. And I was reading through your 8-page bio about all of the charities and the organizations that you were involved in and boards you sat on and things you championed. And I wondered how you managed to have time for anything else.
You know, it's funny. You've heard the expression. You know, you find a busy person and give them something to do. You never do it alone. I will tell you. Firstly, you have the understanding of a wonderful family, and I've got an amazing wife who has suffered all my absences and the time commitment. Because you can't do that alone. You do that by an understood commitment, and so her sense of giving was allowing me the time to do some of those things, because it'd be pretty late nights and a lot of things. Because I think at one point when I ran in 2008, somebody tabulated that I had been involved in some 57 organizations, and often many of them in leadership positions there, just because I miss a meeting, you get in charge, and that's what happens, you know. And so it turns out, from the Chamber to the Convention Center to St. John Ambulance, some really, really great organizations that I've had the privilege to serve and to lead. Those take the time they take. So you need a very understanding family, and you need great teams. And I've always been blessed to surround myself with folks who work really hard. They're smart people, and they make you look good. So in a real sense, that's exactly what happened. And I've been pretty blessed with some pretty strong people along the way that have helped make me look pretty good. At some point, you get the credit for it, but in truth, you just happen to be one part of the big puzzle, and it's those people that really do the real work.
You seem to have taken on leadership roles in a lot of your life. I mean, even running on grade 8, but then you took on leadership roles in your schooling from then forward. I mean, that didn't seem to set you back too much, that grade 8 defeat.
No, I seemed to overcome it.
And then as we just talked about, you're really involved in your community. You were a leading business person in your community. Why are those leadership roles important to you?
Well, you know, it's funny. I think we are all part of what we've ever been, if that makes some sense at some esoteric level. And what I really mean...
I think that's your philosophy degree.
Yeah, sorry about that. But in truth, what happens is that every piece of what you've been builds to where you are now. And I'm not trying to sound odd by saying that.
No.
But so the things that you do when you build on the leadership skills that you've had in one thing that go to another, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it really has a lot of bearing as to why I ran. And I can get really philosophical and quote Plato, but I think what I'd rather say is that when I've been as involved as I've been in my community, and I've had some relatively good success in my business career, and so when you say that, you say, then how do I serve best? What do I do next? And this opportunity came up, and I didn't say yes right away. In fact, though, interestingly, I actually ran in 1993 for the Progressive Conservatives.
That was a great year to choose.
Well, let me just say we went from majority government to 2 seats. And
yes,
Ed
I remember that.
I thought you might. Ed Holder was not one of the 2 seats. And it was tough to be a Progressive Conservative in those days federally, but we persevered through that. And I didn't run the next time, but having said that, it happened, well, I guess 3.5 years ago when I was asked again if I would consider it, and then I said yes again. It took me about 3 months to decide that at that time, because my world was pretty set.
Yeah.
But it's that sense of duty and that sense of purpose that you have to do that. And I think when you're in a leadership role, I think one of our obligations, I think we have an obligation to inspire, and you do that, and I hope I do, but I think you do it through setting examples, and if you've been given some skills, then I think you have an obligation to use them as best you can.
Tell me about your wife.
Yes.
And tell me about her reaction when you said the first time before 1993, I'm thinking of running for Parliament. Did she jump on the bandwagon? Did she offer words of caution or wisdom? What was her reaction?
Well, my wife Shadid was actually born in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. And as I tell the story, she came to Canada just to find me. Now, she tells it a little differently, I want you to know. She might. And but the truth is, we're together. Right. She came from Zimbabwe, so how can I deny what the reality is? That's a very good question. I would say that in the same way that Judith accepted my sense of responsibility and other things, even back in '93. When she and I discussed it, because it isn't a unilateral decision, not allowed to be, not allowed. And we talked about it, and I talked about it with our children, and they were kind of excited, and my son just wanted to get a drive in the limo because he figured that's what would happen, and so he was pretty excited about that. Yeah. From our standpoint, though, it was very much a family dialogue, but they let me have my way on that, and because they realized that was my opportunity to serve. Although in 1993 it just wasn't meant to be.
I think what's also interesting is I wonder if your wife's background, coming from where she came from, wouldn't also have informed her sense that running was a good thing to do. I mean, Rhodesia and then Zimbabwe has had such an interesting history where being involved in the democratic process has been at times suppressed, at times been key to ensuring that change happens. She would have such a clear understanding of getting involved because of that background that it might have influenced her support for you in a way.
Well, that's an interesting insight. My wife has almost as many opinions as my Cape-bred mother, and so from the standpoint of being a strong woman, she is. My daughter's a strong woman. So I was saying and in fact, what's interesting, I'm on the Status of Women Committee now, and the funny thing about that is that we had a group come to our Status of Women Committee, and when they approached us, we were all introducing ourselves. So I started saying how I've got strong mom, 4 strong sisters, strong wife, strong daughter, 2 granddaughters now. And I said, I said the only male companionship I have is my dog. That's it. That's the only other support system I've got. Aside from that,
that's great.
Yeah. So.
Well, now you did run in 1993. You didn't win, and you didn't run again for a while.
That's right.
And was part of that because 3 years after you first ran, you lost your son?
Yes, that's exactly the reason why. What we decided at that time was, look, I needed my family a lot more than my sense of country, and we just kind of cloned. We just wrapped ourselves around each other, and he was 14 at the time, and it was our heart and soul, and my wife lost her business. My daughter lost her year at school, and kind of you almost lose a lot of hope. But our family stuck together, so I didn't run in '97 when the next election was, because I needed my family more. And the joy for us now is that my daughter's given us 2 wonderful grandbabies, both girls, as I say. And what I love about them is that when my little 4-year-old Maya and Katya are my 2 babies. And so when we go to their house and my daughter Claudia says, Maya, Katya, it's Grandma and Papa. And so Maya will run over, Papa, Papa, go like this, right into her grandmother's arms every time. So she's a little dyslexic, I think, except for that. They're just too precious. They're just too much fun.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, they are.
You know, you talked about needing your family, and I think in times of tragedy that what so many of us who haven't experienced it ourselves but see it from the outside, see our families who often struggle really hard and don't manage to stay together. What was it about your bond? What was it that you did that allowed your family to stay together?
Well, probably the most important thing, ironically, was our daughter. Mm-hmm. She really helped. Claudia really gave us purpose, and we wanted to do that for her sake. Interestingly, there's a wonderful group called the Breathe Families of Ontario, and there are chapters across the country. And they just take folks who've lost their child, and it doesn't matter the age of the child. Bruno was 14. It doesn't matter the age. And we just go and help each other. And then we went kind of into a bit of a select group where it was a little more intense counseling. There were 4 couples, and then when 3 of the 4 couples decided to separate, Judith and I said, well, maybe we don't want to go to this thing anymore. Mm-hmm. But the regular monthly meetings were certainly very helpful. But it was Claudia at first. It's interesting because the grieving process is a really, I don't know how to explain it, except that Judith and I would grieve at different times in different ways, and then we'd sometimes get a little cranky with each other when we weren't kind of on the same wavelength. But our daughter was our rock. She really was, and she gave us the purpose and helped us get through probably the toughest times. Plus a deep, passionate love. I love her to bits, my wife, and so you know, when that's all said and done, that to me is the most important thing.
So you have this you have a traumatic experience. You learn from it, as one does every experience in life, despite how unimaginably awful it would be. You go on, you have this very illustrious business career, and then this opportunity comes to run again. Why take it a second time? Especially after having had not such a great experience the first time around. Plus
grade 8 running for class president.
Yeah, that's a lot of cuts.
Yeah, a lot of cuts. So actually, I've never been very successful at most of the running. You know, it's interesting. It comes back to that sense of duty and service. We didn't say yes right away. I'd been approached by a couple of members of the executive of the London West Riding Association, and they asked me to consider it. It probably took us 3 months to make that decision because it wasn't a quick yes. Because I owed my family that, particularly I think in part because we had gone through so much as a family, and I thought it was critical that what we do is make some decisions about, and we make these decisions together about what worked for us going forward. But Judith said, look, that's always been your passion. So she sounded a lot like my old friends, and she said, I'm not going to stop you from doing this. I know you think it's important, and I think what you do will be important. And it's all about trying to make a difference where you go along the way. Mm-hmm. And I hope when I die, they say something like on my tombstone that he left this world just a little bit better than when he started. And that's kind of how I hope that I'll have had a little bit of impact along the way. But Judith was great. She was incredibly supportive of me, and we were successful in the nomination and successful in the election. Very thoughtful election. I ran against a 15-year incumbent Liberal, and her son and my boy played hockey together. So
was that awkward?
No, well, you know, interesting, because we weren't close friends, but we knew each other at that level.
Yeah. And
I never had anything poor to say about her. Still wouldn't.
But you don't seem to have anything poor to say about anyone, and I think that's interesting. But what interested me as well in doing some research about you was you talked so favorably, and even on election night when this past election, about a fellow MP from a different party, Glenn Pearson, yes, who was a man who was well known to have a strong distaste for partisan politics. Are you that type of person too? Since you don't have bad things to say about people, are you a nonpartisan kind of party guy?
I'm not sure I would say that. I mean, aside from having my mom's Cape Breton opinions, I chose the Conservative Party because personally I think that is the right direction. Look, I don't say necessarily that any party gets everything right, and I think when they don't, I think we have an obligation as members of Parliament to speak our view, and I'm not shy to do that. So maybe it's by degree of partisanship. I'm not so sure. You mentioned my friend Glenn Pearson. Again, Glenn, just like Sue Barnes, the lady who I ran against when she was the incumbent 3 years ago, I've known Glenn for 20-odd years. I mean, the food bank has been around 25 years, and I started the Business Cares Food Drive because there was nothing in winter that was going to help people get through the later winter months. And we run it today. I still co-chair that event because it's important to take care of those who can't take care of themselves. I think we have an obligation as a caring society to do that. Glenn's been great. He was a great parliamentarian. He had a bit of a different approach, as I think most folks know about Glenn. A very gracious man, very eloquent and elegant gentleman. And I still see him and talk to him quite regularly, and I have a lot of great respect for what he has done for the parliamentary process. And equally important, what I'm particularly impressed is what he and his wife Jane have done to make London just a little bit better as well.
But you are able to say nice things about people, but still get your opinion across, then? Well,
I think so. And again, if one was to ask my philosophy, it's conservative philosophy, and there are, again, varying degrees on different issues. But you see, it's not one size catches all. This is not how it works. But within the tent of the Conservative Party, I'm exceptionally comfortable with it, and I think the direction that we're taking, without trying to sound too partisan, but the direction that we're taking is the right direction for the sake of the country at this time. I think it's good for Canada, and I play a modest part in that, and I'm delighted to be here doing that.
Okay, so there's a little bit of partisanship after all.
A little bit. Okay. But you can be but you see, you can
of course you can.
But you can be partisan without being mean.
Absolutely,
and I think that's
agree
the point.
With that.
And you know, it's like Kate Breton Mom always said, if you don't, I think she made this expression up, if you don't have something nice to say about someone, don't say anything. And so sometimes I don't say much because there's some people that can frustrate you, I suppose. But from my perspective, I think people who run for public service, I think they've got a great heart and a great commitment to this country, and I applaud them for that. And so you have to honor that service as well. And so I think you can be partisan without being mean about it.
We don't have a lot of time left, but I want to ask you about guitar playing.
Yeah.
Do you play a lot of guitar?
Well, you know what? When I can, I've got guitars in every place. My apartment.
Do you really?
Home. Oh yeah.
My. So do you ever wish that you'd been in a band instead of
in
Parliament?
No. That this lifestyle is curious enough. I'm not sure I want to have a band lifestyle. But when I was a kid, I played in a little jazz band. When I was at university, it helped me get through. I played in an East Coast country band, and I remember playing at a place called the Ox Box in London. Now they've since torn it down, which is a good thing. Because,
hopefully not right after you were there.
Well, no, but they threw things at me.
Oh,
they were bad.
Really?
They threw buttons. It was just.
Were they just because they didn't enjoy the music,
exactly.
Or is that your?
Because I wasn't.
It's not a reflection of your skill.
Oh no, I think it was totally a reflection of my skill.
Okay.
No, I don't think I was that good.
Okay.
But I'm more of a picker and a grinner, and put me in a fireplace with a bunch of friends who don't mind singing a little off key, and it's all good. I think that's just the joy of it. And
so
again,
politics is the better place for you.
Sometimes sitting around a campfire with a guitar can be a little bit better place too. But no, I think politics versus a rock band makes a little more sense. I think so.
Ed Holder, thank you very much for being here today. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you.
Well, Catherine, it's my delight. Thank you as well.
CPAC is press conferences. CPAC, real-time politics.
Inequality has increased in the past 10 years.
This is where we part company with the government.
We have a fundamental difference here with the opposition of all stripes.
This country has 45 minutes. Question period. See it on CPAC.
Coming up, it's Glenn McKinnon, Puneet Berge, and Heather Seaman. Join them as they crisscross the country in search of your opinion on the places.
I think the East is very career-driven, and I think the West is a little more laid-back pace.
The politics.
This is a very big country, and everyone has a lot of differences and things that they need.
And the process.
Should be an equal representation right across the board.
So join Puneet, Heather, and I each week
on Outpost. See it on CPAC.
Les agences, les projets de loi, les mesures législatives, scrutés à la loupe. Les délibérations de comités parlementaires fédéraux en version intégrale et sans filtrage. Les comités de la Chambre des communes à voir à CPAC. C'est un aperçu quotidien de ce qui se passe tant à l'intérieur qu'en dehors du Parlement. Prenez rendez-vous avec Pierre Donnet et moi, Daniel Young, pour un examen détaillé des nouvelles les plus importantes.